My good friends are world advancers. We go chasing after answers. No more each day.
Sweet. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of My Good Friends. We are live from my closet once more. I don't know. I'm getting used to it. I've been here 3 times this week, maybe more. And we are in day. Are we in the 200s at this point? I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Feels like it.
And now it's like the Hunger Games have started. We have Tracker Jackers or Murder Hornets, whatever you want to call them.
Right.
So if anything else starts happening, I swear that it's going to be over.
Does that mean it's time to choose which one of our children goes into the lottery?
Yeah, I have one for you. I might have 2. Oh, sorry, that came out wrong.
I only have one kid, but I'll put her name in twice.
Wait, I don't
More
think
rations for you, man.
your kid isn't old enough. You don't know yet. You don't know.
I don't. I
think you have a baby. That doesn't count.
I have a toddler. I have a teenager. They're arguably it's just as bad.
No.
No? Okay.
No,
I know nothing. It's okay.
I have a 10 and 11-year-old girls, and Tina has teenagers. Oh. Yes, good times. Anyways, welcome to our lovely show. We have 2 special guests with us. Allison McCullough, did I say that correctly?
You did.
From Memorial Sloan Kettering. Allison, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we also have our friend David Kelly from Premier, somewhere in Ohio, the land of flatness, I guess. I don't know what else to say about Ohio.
The longest state to drive through.
Yeah, I always drive through it when I go to Florida, and I hate it. I'm sorry, but it's the worst.
That's all right. I think that everybody's got their opinions about driving patterns depending on what state you're from and what state you're in and so forth and so on. The folks in southeastern Ohio would dispute the flatness argument.
That's true.
Folks in northwest Ohio would say yes.
It's very flat.
But I believe we're the home to the most presidents, meaning more of the 45 presidents have come from Ohio as their place of residence than any other state. I think that's a viable anecdote. The internet, I'm sure, will check me and
we may need to
communicate directly with Ben,
check.
not with me. Don't tell me if I'm wrong. Tell Ben. He wants to know. Just you have an anecdote besides flatness is my point.
I know a lot of useless information. I did not know that. And nor probably am I going to remember that. Yes.
That's all right.
It's fantastic. All right. So I don't know. So today I thought it'd be good. We did an episode with 3 other leaders. I don't know. Was that a month ago? Probably now. It was a while ago. So the middle of this, or near the beginning, but we were at least into it. So I don't know when the middle is going to be. Sure. Hopefully we've already gone past it. And we got their perspectives on what was happening. So I thought it'd be good to do another part 2 a little while later. So that's kind of what this is, I guess. And we'll start with, I don't know, what should we start with? I'm game to talk about anything. What's happening on the front lines?
Well, we're reopening. Ohio, the governor has continued to give updates that are, phasing in reopening. Yesterday, he was talking about restaurants. I guess Monday, he's promising to talk about daycare. So Premier Health Partners and my component of that, which is Premier Physician Network, I've got a revenue cycle for our 800 or so providers. This week, we've really started doing elective visits. I'm really interested to see end-of-week volume numbers for us. Our projection for specialty was not a return to baseline, but an improvement from where we've been. Primary care, the projection for the week based on scheduled appointments was actually higher than baseline. So the theory of the pent-up demand may be viable, may be accurate. So really interested to see those first week volume numbers. And then my peers on the facility side, I think we're seeing a lot of volume coming back there. People concerned about things, they want to get diagnosed. So a lot of diagnostics and procedures getting done and, things that have been on pause for the last couple months.
Yeah.
So unfortunately for New York City, the epicenter of the epicenter, things are a little bit different. We, of course, are not opening up anytime soon. Our pause is through the end of next week, and likely we're expecting announcement from the governor to probably put us under for another 2 weeks. That would be my estimation and what we're kind of planning for. I will say that, you know, MSK is a specialty hospital, and so the services that we're providing to our patients are quite different and critical for those patients that we are serving. And so through COVID, it's been I guess we're in a better place than a lot of our counterparts. We literally share campus with New York Presbyterian. That's actually where my husband is a physician, so I know a lot about that organization as well. And so I know volumes there. We haven't seen as huge dramatic decreases, especially in our outpatient visits, just because our patients are seeking cancer care. So those are things that cannot wait. So, however, I know when I've been looking at baseline models this month, or actually April, we were down 40% in the outpatient space, and we were down in the we were down about 30% in our inpatient volume. So we expect that to continue through this month at least. And I have been working on baseline models with our finance teams and our strategy teams. And we have, you know, best case scenario, we have middle of the road scenario, and worst case scenario. I'm planning for worst case scenario because I know in revenue cycle that in 4 months, my door's going to get knocked on and say, where's the cash that's in this best case scenario? So we are really, you know, looking at all of our models. We've had to look at different things. So unlike academic medicine that you're probably, and the outpatient models that you're probably working in, for us, we get paid instead of DRG rates, we get paid per diem. We're a specialty cancer hospital. There's, I forget the number, so there are 11 or 13 of us throughout the country that have this special setup. And so when we were actually looking at some of our projected budget numbers, I realized that they had taken an average between our surgical inpatient days and our medical inpatient days, and they had taken a blended average of that. And actually, when I broke it down, we were so compressed, we were so downward trending in our surgical numbers that we were actually projecting better than what we were really at. So we had to do a lot of retooling of our strategies because of that. So it's been a lot of lessons learned, but I'm hoping that, you know, we're pretty much at the floor right now. And we expect to be off of the floor in the coming weeks. Even though we are still under a stay-at-home order, we have started doing some what we deem very critical surgeries and things like that. We've started to bump up. This week I saw that we had 30, on average, 30 more surgeries performed than we were, you know, several weeks ago. So we're starting to inch up, but I think it's going to be a long, slow recovery. My middle of the road scenario really has us coming back to baseline around next December. So that's a long way out.
Whoa, next December. I did not think you would say that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So how many of you, both of you, you've all sent staff home, right?
Yeah.
So how did that go? What do you foresee kind of the future? So let's just say things come back. What do you think, what are you going to be doing?
So what I want to do is I want to keep as many people home as possible. We got down to about 10% of our staff or less in office. But we also did that because of our volume decrease. We had staffing adjustments. You know, we needed to staff to volume because of financial considerations for the organization, cash flow problems. When you have a 30 to 70% drop off, depending on the service line and volumes, you have to manage that, right? And that was a challenging time and a challenging, you know, message to give to people. But what that did was a lot of those folks who then were not working, they had devices that we could use to send other people home. So in that sense, we did get some silver lining out of that. It's important, I think, in the middle of this pandemic to try to find the positive moments, and that was a positive. It allowed us to get some more people home. But what that means is, as we ramp staffing back up, that means we're bringing, for every one person we bring back on staff, we're actually bringing 2 back into the office. So we're keeping a very keen eye on social distancing measures for the office, because that means it's going to ramp up quickly.
Why are you bringing people back into the office?
Because then if I had your laptop, you had a laptop, but you weren't going to work for a month. So I give that to Tina, who's only got a desktop, so that Tina can go home. Now I'm going to bring Ben back on staff because volumes are coming back. Ben needs his computer. So you need your laptop back, right? So then Tina also has to come back from work from home to use her desktop. Unless our organization has a change in philosophy about taking desktops home, because I can't, with supply chain problems and costs, I wish I could, I really do, whip up, a bunch of laptops to be able to send all those workers home who had desktops. So we did get a few more, an infusion of a few more laptop devices recently. So that's going to help us, but not enough.
But why wouldn't you? I mean, so the issue is like your organization's deciding that they're not going to send desktops home to people.
Correct.
Why wouldn't they? Why are they saying they're not going to do that?
I think there's some reasonable information security concerns there, hardware concerns that a lot of organizations had, but also in this crisis, I've heard of organizations saying, hey, just get everybody home. And I think that that's something that our organizational leaders are talking about between finance, IT, HR. Ben, you and I've talked in one of the town halls previously about if not even everybody, if half the rev cycle organizations in the country just keep everybody home, I'm not competing regionally for talent anymore. I'm competing nationally. So I got to keep up. So that is a discussion that's going on within my organization. I just, about should we change philosophy and policy? We just haven't yet. So
But what's the difference between a laptop and a desktop? I mean, they're both yours.
Correct.
Just one's portable, easier to port. Honestly, is probably easier to steal than the desktop would be. But I don't think stealing is your issue. So it can't be that security is the issue, because they're equally the same. You're creating a VPN through both.
That's a good point. I don't know then maybe if that's not correct, and I'm saying, hey, it's security, and maybe that's not actually IT's concern. Maybe it's home support, having to do support for people who have a device at home versus a laptop that you can bring it back in and meet with somebody from IT. Again, that could be reasonable, but I think that the moral of the story here that our organization is talking about, I think a lot of organizations got there quicker, and I think some may get there, at the same speed as us or later, is we need to throw out some of our prior assumptions. We need to throw out some of our, or at least revisit some of our pre-COVID assumptions. Okay, we don't want to send desktops home. All right, why? Okay, security, home setup, home support, things like that. Okay, but is there a way to accomplish that? And I actually had a call with a member of your advisory board yesterday at UT, who they have their employees provide their own device, because they say, look, you're not buying gas, you're not doing wear and tear on your car. And I've talked to my CFO, and we like that idea potentially. So we're exploring. I mean, there's a lot of, the devil's in the details there, right? Like, what device do they buy? What antivirus do they put on their computer? All that stuff. But we're exploring that because we really want to provide more options to get people from home more permanently.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that idea as much. I think HEI, who is specializing in this whole, this is what they do, is they help groups go home. Yep. They said that they did not recommend organizations do that.
Yeah,
because they can't control. Then this is the type of hardware. This is what you're going to have on it. They can to a degree, but much better if I give you, this is what I'm giving you.
Right.
Here's how. Well, we're managing and we own it.
Yeah.
I think, and then don't you have, when you buy the device, regardless of, it's then sort of an all-purpose device and not a work, the kind of the rules about usage would change. I would change, because there would be a sort of an attitude adjustment that would
mine.
need to happen.
Right.
Yeah, if I
it's
bought it, it's
mine.
like, well, I'm gonna use it for
Right.
YouTube.
So how
and-
dare you tell me I can't watch Bon Appetit videos on end?
Is someone doing that?
While I'm addressing your coding. I don't know. I love them.
Not Tina. Not Tina.
Never.
Not me.
Mm-mm.
No, that's not mine. They're not my new favorite at-home friends. That's not
I
real.
haven't even heard of that. That's amazing.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to send you a video and you're going to love it.
No,
I am.
I'm already making too much food at home. It's
There you go.
ridiculous. I learned how to make cinnamon rolls. I mean, this is like,
Nice.
yeah.
And
Not
okay.
the ones that come out of the can bin.
No,
Those are the ones I specialize
ones.
in.
That's a
Allison,
fair
from
question.
scratch. From scratch.
wow.
And they were amazing. Not gonna lie, they were ridiculous. I'm like, is this all it takes? Because I could have been doing this years ago. Little had I known. It'd also be 200 pounds, but that's a different
Right.
story altogether.
Right.
It's
Well,
relevant.
Right.
On that one, you would just have to
Well-
get Shay to whip you into shape or
Oh
something.
gosh, that guy. He's already like, you're doing my 40 burpees at 4:30 a.m. right, Ben? I'm like, no,
No,
I'm
No.
not doing that.
no, good for you. I'm not.
He's like, you could join my call at 4:30. I'm like, you are out of your mind, Shay. There's no way I'm getting up at that time, let alone joining a phone call with other
Yeah.
Right.
people.
I don't think anybody wants to see that.
No,
Mm-mm.
I don't want to see that.
No.
Yeah.
I can
don't-
barely
don't
get on my
think so.
Peloton at 7:30. Okay, so just FYI. All right, sorry, Allison, you were gonna say something.
We digressed.
We've gone.
That's
way off.
okay. You have to. You have to. So, David, we actually have a little bit of everything going on at MSK. So there was
All
a
right.
rule of thought
This is fun.
under a different senior leadership team where we started sending people home years ago because, as you can imagine, rent in Manhattan is expensive. So we don't want to continue growing teams
mean-
and buying floors.
No.
You know, rent is an issue for us. So we had sent people home starting about 10 years ago, and we sent them home and we got them MSK desktop, double monitors. They had a special thing called an Aruba monitor or Aruba router. I didn't even know this thing existed. And we paid for internet, like a certain speed. So that was the
Wow.
thought for many
Yeah.
years.
Oh.
That's
Mhm.
amazing.
Yes. Yeah, come work for MSK. Then,
Oh,
don't worry.
It's gonna steal David's people.
but don't worry,
That's right.
then that changed, and they, if you wanted to go home, that was considered a benefit, and we would allow you to do so, but you had to purchase your own device. And you were responsible for your setup, and then they stopped paying for internet for everyone across the board, and you had to, fund your own internet. So right now, I have staff at home with quite outdated equipment, probably, that was provided by our company at one point. And then I also have people that went out and got laptops or their own desktops to be able to work from home. So I was very lucky that when all this was going on, we already had people rotating at home. Some of the coding team was already home 4 days, so going to 5 was not a big deal. Then I had most teams already working from home 2 days a week. So we had a setup for that. There were a handful of people around in our optical team, like our scanning teams, that of course, why would they work from home? That was never part of the deal, but we actually figured out how to quickly convert some things to electronic files so that they could go home. And we had a small pool of loaner laptops that we sent them home with. So what we're having a discussion about right now is, okay, when we do come back to the office, which likely for us is not going to be until mid-June, July at the earliest, and we're going to have to maintain social distancing. What does that really look like? We're looking at having a rotational basis of about 15% of our staff coming in, because that's how much we could do realistically with social distancing. But, there's also the thought that we've been very productive at home. We've been 8 to 11% more productive at home on any given week during the whole pandemic. I don't know if it's really because people aren't taking vacations. We have, thank God, not had a whole lot of people being out sick. So, some of the normal things that happen, in the office, like we're just not experiencing. So we've also talked about, do we just keep a subset of our employees home full time? And so I know that I've reached out to some colleagues at the Ohio State University. They sent their entire team home a number of years ago. And then they created essentially a hoteling space for big meetings and certain things to happen. So we're exploring some of that. I know they've had some lessons learned. I went to a presentation on their working from home and kind of where they've landed as a result of a couple of years of going through this. So I'm talking with them about their experiences because I think, it's going to be very hard for me in particular with people that have very long commutes to get to our office, convincing people that, hey, come back when you look at numbers. For me, I'm like, hey, these people are more productive at home. And, so we're going to have this discussion about perhaps sending certain equipment home. I think that MSK may end up going in other direction about having certain equipment being a part of your at-home package. So that's what we're looking at.
Why would you bring people back?
Yeah,
why are you thinking even bringing some people back? I guess I would challenge that. Just like, why are you thinking to do that when maybe it's not necessary?
I think at least for MSK, it's part of like the return to normal, right? Like, and I think and I've had some staff express to me, like, I need to come back. Like, I cannot work at home long term. I'm one of those people, like, please get me out of this home office. I like to just live in my bedroom. So I know that some people just want to be able to come back. And there's definitely discussions happening at our C-suite level that I'm certainly not privy to at this time. I know they're trying to make some decisions around, like really how much would our organization save if we theoretically really, really shave down our footprint in Manhattan. It's a lot of money. So, as we get down the road here with, the overall loss that COVID has cost us, I think that that's going to be a harder number not to say, yeah, we need to wipe this off the board. But I do know, we've also been talking with some of our development and HR folks. They're saying, if you do send everyone home, we need to quickly shift because think about like tech companies, Google, Apple, all these places that are considered, sexy places to work, healthcare revenue cyclists, probably not on that list.
I mean,
stop it.
It's at least number
so
3.
Sexy. Come on.
At least number 3.
But these companies invest a lot in these touch-based, seminars. They bring their whole teams together. I mean, I don't think I'm asking for like, a convention in the Bahamas or anything like that, but we need to have a way to get our teams together to still create some of that team camaraderie, shared common purpose, because, Zoom meetings are great. Yes, you can see everyone, but everyone's in a box. And I think for our culture, at least, we really pride ourselves on providing, just like every other healthcare, we're doing the best for our patients. We have a shared common goal. And it's hard to maintain that. At least I'm finding in some of the meetings I'm in, people are starting to get really territorial about what they're managing, what they're responsible for. And we need to have that team breakdown. And you can only go so far, I feel, in these face chats that you have. So we need, if we're going that route, I feel like our company is going to have to divert some sort of funds or new process to bringing teams together at intervals.
But Allison, isn't that just a shift though in everyone's mindset? I think that the danger is, and I'm guilty of this 100%, is like, I just want it to go back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no normal. That world we had is like, that's the hardest part about probably all of this, is most people are not accepting the fact that that it's not going to go back, can't go back to a normal, because that world doesn't exist anymore. So I think maybe it's just like the challenge is like, because if I'm not in your spot, so I get to be like the theoretical person, right? So if I'm running a rev cycle, I'm basically thinking to myself, no, I think I'm gonna change the game and like make it so that when we hire Susie, who lives in Albuquerque,
mm-hmm.
she gets the brand new laptop with the whole setup and a welcome gift, and she's part of the team. and we make it so that she feels included, but that she probably never comes to New York City into MSK. She probably never steps foot on MSK campus. Like, that's a reality that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
So
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
it's,
Allison.
but I'm just saying, it's like, it's not necessarily you have to like give up your whole staff. It's just that some people are going to be able to work in that world, and it's going to take some people, others, a long time to work in that world. I just remember, even just this is a simple example. when we were helping a hospital switch over to Epic, this is not 7 years ago, maybe. We had people that didn't know how to use a mouse. Okay. So they did not transition to Epic. So for a while we had them work the old legacy stuff, right? And then they just kind of retired. Like, they were just like,
Mhm.
screw it, we're not going to learn. I'm not saying that's the case, or it's just, you know, people who are older. It's just like everyone is going to have to either shift to a world in which they are willing to do that, or they're going to have to figure out a different like path or job. Because ultimately, I don't think, especially in your market, it makes any sense to bring people into the most expensive real estate market and the highest probably paying it. It doesn't.
Mm-mm.
And I
No, you're
think
right.
too, like, I'm sure Ben can relate. When I left a regular job to start my company and podcast randomly, it took me 6-7 months to figure out
Mhm.
who I was without that time frame and this destination and the commute and all. I mean, not that I didn't love it, because I did, but it was still like super weird. And I think, despite the fact that it feels like we've been doing this for a very long time, the stay-at-home
we
orders
haven't.
and whatnot, we
haven't.
haven't. This is a blip in time. This is not. So you have to accept, like, I lived my life a certain way for 40 years, and now I'm going to do this. And so I think it just takes some time to get used to. And I think, Allison, you can still foster and create culture without being in person. I think you can. And I think
it just
those
takes
new
a
hires,
big shift. It takes
Yeah.
a big shift in leader and how you manage and lead. I actually
Right.
think that this is maybe the largest shift for leaders in a long time, because they're going to have to start to figure out how to manage through this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is much hard. Like, for you and I and all four of us who didn't grow up in this world, this is much harder. Like, I have an aversion to the phone. So I don't like to be on the phone, because I can't see you, and I can't hear, like, I can't hear you as
Right.
well. This is much better for me, but this is still way different than me being in person.
Right.
True.
I think a couple things in that line of conversation. One I want to come back to, and then I want to move us forward as well, which is, for me, it's not even necessarily my concerns with getting people home are logistical. We go back to, and I think that, to your point, Ben, about the philosophy, I think there's companies struggling with that philosophy change, and particularly if you're like Ohio, where we didn't see a big overrun of hospital capacity. So I think there's people across the state. I mean, there's several of them in front of the governor's office with picket signs. Those are the extreme end, but there's a lot of people in the middle who are just going, what's the big deal? Why just go back to normal, right? And to your point, I mean, I think that there are some paradigm shifting things going on right now. And so for me, it's more about whether it's having people bring their own device, if you will, by buying a computer. That's not necessarily my favorite idea either, but it allows me to more rapidly get something off the ground to get people working from home. So it's a blend of rapidity versus best solution. But I think that some of that then comes to what you're talking about, the big picture, and not because some of the elements we're talking about right now are not just hospital rev cycle elements. They're broad ranging. Office worker and other workers what can they do from home, and what does that mean for cost and spend? So Allison, you were talking about real estate, but one of the things I've been thinking about is let's say not even everybody in the rev cycle. Let's stick to hospital or healthcare revenue cycle. So pretty narrow. And let's say that half of the organizations move to essentially total work from home workforce, and the other half have a blend or keep people on site, which is probably up tenfold from what it was. You know, I don't know, 5-10% probably were fully remote, and now we're going to have half. Well, how much do you save on real estate? That's a consideration. But if you're hiring one of my workers, let's say, you know, they listen to this webcast,
Let's
this
just
podcast,
say, for instance,
you know, for instance, let's say you swipe one away, right? You probably don't need to pay them New York pay rates. So you could save on salary,
that's
right?
my point.
Because, but my worker might say, well, okay, but I want to make a little bit more. So they meet in the middle, right? So I see inflationary wage pressure, but you see deflationary wage pressure, and we end up across the country with a lot of meeting in the middle on wages and less regional pay. I mean, it's just the tentacles of a large, not even 100%, but a large shift to work from home just in our industry, much less other industries. It's fun to sit and think about, but it's also a bit nerve-wracking to sit and think about, because Ben, to your point, it's like, how do you manage that? How do you handle the wages of that? What
I
are your
disagree,
HR policies?
David. I disagree.
Yeah? Okay.
Well, no, I don't disagree. I think the speed, the people that figure it out and move faster with the mindset shift, as in like the organizations that shift fast, are the winners.
Yes. Oh, I agree with that. I
So
wouldn't.
you don't have to
dispute that
worry
at all.
about it. You don't have to worry. You don't have to be the one worrying, because you're the one going, no, I'm going to get the best talent possible and move everybody home. And the people that can do it are great. And then I'll start picking up other people to do it. And I'm going to treat them really well. I'm going to get them what MSK was doing before is probably the right way to do it. I'm going to get them internet. I'm going to get them a great.
Long term. Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna hook them up, because I want them to be like, yeah, this is awesome. And if I pay them a little bit more because I'm saving all the other stuff, great. But I got to get the best people. That's a total shift in mindset, which is also why I've said for a long time, RevCycle, if you want it to really work, it has to get pulled out of the hospital and its own entity, because you're just one cog in a lot of things that leaders of your health system are thinking about. And let's be honest, you're low on the freaking totem pole. You're low on the totem pole. Like, the clinicians are always going to be first. They're not thinking about like the impact on RevCycle and how much you could save. Right. I mean, they will if it's a line item, but they're not going to which is why I've said forever, it just needs to be its own entity, whether the hospital owns it or not. But they have to be able to control your own destiny, because neither of you would be thinking about, you'd be thinking totally different if it was your choice. If you had total flexibility to do what you want, you would just go do it. You'd be like, no, everyone's home. We're not coming back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I'd figure out how to get my people. Like right now, I'm like, I need to get people double screens, because if I've got 8% productivity, and I know, like me right now, I'm going through this painstaking auditing task that I have. That's what I do.
This is awesome.
That's what I do.
Love it.
After dinner to prove that I want to learn my system a little bit better, and this is a great way to do it. But I'm like, oh dear God, if this is what my team is having to face every day on their laptop that I provide, and they're doing this huge lift. I called my boss the other day. I was like, how quickly can I get 200 extra monitors and cables sent to home to people? Because we're going to go through the roof. Like I'll have an FTE, multiple FTE savings, just because, the way our systems work, you need to have multiple screens up at all times. So you're looking at different data sets to do. So anyway, but absolutely. If I was my own wheelhouse, I'd have a different plan in place.
I mean, that's what those companies are doing in India. I was just in India in July. That's how we set up our whole team. They've got 3 monitors in some cases, and they got computers that work, and they're hustling.
Yep.
And that's what everyone's going to be competing with. And at a quarter of the labor cost.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is, like, organizations who are not thinking about like 4 steps ahead and they're thinking like, how do we just get people back to get to normal? Like that is like a recipe for disaster, I think, but I could be totally wrong. Again, I don't have to sit in your shoes, so I'm lucky.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I really don't. I think what my point was more just to clarify, my point was more about there are so many tendrils to some of these changes in our
Agreed.
country
Agreed.
that trying to figure them all out, where does it, and then this touches this and then that touches that, like that is what I'm saying is fun but also an enormous challenge. But in saying that, I don't disagree with your point that those who execute on what they can figure out, the tendrils that they do see and can figure out, I think they're going to emerge as having significant market advantages. I agree with that entirely. And whether that's winning talent or improving their bottom line because they save costs, or both, or whatever, it's some of it is just may come down to the willingness to experiment as well. I think this is the tendril that's going to touch this thing. It's going to be winning, and they go partway down it, and it doesn't work. So let's pivot, right? It's speed of innovation may matter a lot right now, because I know we've seen that internally, trying to adapt to the coronavirus in 2 months. Just what can we get off the ground for telehealth? How fast can we get it off the ground? It's not going to be perfect. Whereas 6 months ago, we might have said, hey, we're going to do telehealth, but it's got to be, I's dotted, T's crossed. Don't forget the lowercase j's. We got to dot those too. Just everything has to be perfect, ducks in a row. And now it's like, well, let's just get this care pathway open.
Right.
Patients need to see their doctor.
Yeah, tomorrow. Oh, okay.
Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah, exactly.
I
there
think,
may be
David,
more of that.
Right. All the things you're talking about, though, too, are never going to get accomplished if we keep looking back at what the experience we used to have.
Right.
And I think you have to really be gathering as much information as you can in this moment and projecting that forward with the best intentions. I just think the idea, and it's always, this isn't going to sound political, but I don't mean it that way. The whole "Make America Great Again," slogan. Like, when was America better than it is now? Tell me that. At least from my point of view. So I think that's where we kind of, there's not a make Rev Cycle great again. I think there's make Rev Cycle great, period. Let's go that way.
That's 100% true. But I mean, I think we could all agree that
it's a new T-shirt right there.
Oh yeah.
Make Rev Cycle great.
Yeah,
Excellent.
We're not doing that T-shirt. I mean, we could all agree that talent it trumps complexity into the unknown. So you have the right talent. You have enough talent, right talent. All those questions about, well, does this work? Does this work? I think get a lot easier to manage.
Right.
Because then you've got the people that can pull it off. Even if you're moving half of your things to automation, which is going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, okay, but you got to have really smart people to run those machines.
Yeah.
So talent war is going to be, I think, just almost the number one thing everyone has to figure out.
I agree. I think that, I think there's a couple things to unpack just within that, right? So the smart people running automation is one that I've talked about several times in the past at Scott Becker's conferences. It's like the person submitting claims is not the same person monitoring an RPA bot to make sure the RPA bot isn't screwing up and sending out 4,000 false claims a day, keep us all out of jail. That's not the same person, right? It just isn't. So that's an element of the catchphrase, the future of work or whatever, that I think a lot of us are aware of, is that those are different mindsets and potentially whole different people. I think
David,
that's going to be exacerbated.
I would almost disagree with you there. And this is just based on a bot that I just sent, that I have live on Monday. It's running right now. We'll see. I keep getting dings on my phone with bot exceptions, and I'm kind of getting nervous right now. But with that being said, I do have my person that was formerly doing that work, helping in the lift and the build of this. And she actually reached out to me yesterday, and she said, I think I could do this for other things too. And so I think, because she sees the writing on the wall. I told her, I was like, you've helped us create this process. Now we're training a bot. We've got to move this on to other things. And so I think that if you have, now granted, maybe this person is also outgrowing her current role, but I've involved my line level staff in these bot creations because, I can say I want this to happen, but at the end of the day, I don't know all the nitty gritty little details of what they're clicking, how things are going. They know that. So we've involved them in that process. And I found that's been so helpful, because we actually started off on one path, we ended down another, because we figured out, like, actually we'll have more time saving if we go the route that our staff is following versus what my conception was. So I think that some of that is future work. Like this woman has reached out to me and said, I think that I should be moving in the bot direction. I'm like, yeah, that's what I think too. So she's going to be helping on the lift of other bots, because we've got to go that direction, to fight the battle that the payer is trying to wage on us with their own bots. It's like a bot war. It's not even going to be people responding. It's just going to be
It's a Cold
bots.
War.
This is the scene. This is the exact scene in the movie. Oh gosh, now I can't think of it. Octavia Spencer's in it, and it's about the women in the
Hidden Figures.
Hidden
The
Figures.
accident?
Hidden
Oh, yeah.
Figures. And Octavia Spencer finds the machine, the first IBM machine, right? And then she's like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm going to start training. I'm going to learn this, and I'm going to train my people on this. And then she knew it. And she totally shifted from like, I'm doing this to punch cards, right? This is like punch card days. But this is almost the same thing. It's like, oh, I was doing this, and I'm submitting claims, and now, I'm teaching the robot how to do it.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
Allison, I should clarify, and for anybody who listens, I should clarify what I mean when I say that is that, yeah, my opinion of a workflow is probably not the correct opinion, except at a level of granularity that's not enough to get the job done. You have to have people train the bot. What I'm saying is, I would guess, just based on the way you've described this employee, she's not or he, not the type of person that I'm talking about. There are people who,
Right.
there are people who
You're
say,
right.
I want to
get you.
grow.
We get
Or
you. Yeah.
they see the writing on the wall, and there's other people who you say, hey, would you mind moving your cube, 4 millimeters to the left? And they go, no. How dare you?
Yeah.
That's kind of what
Yeah,
I'm talking.
I
There are people
understand.
out there like that, and those
It's,
are
Milton.
that's not
What
the
is it?
same worker. Yeah, Milton, you stole my stapler. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
from
From
Office Space.
Space.
It's like there's Miltons and there's
Right.
the other people.
Right, exactly.
Yes,
And that's kind
you're
of what
right.
I'm saying when I say that same worker is not going to make that transition, because, and I say that with a lot of that industry data about engaged workers. There's just a big percentage of workers that are actively disengaged. That's kind of what I'm talking about when I say I don't know that those folks are going to make that leap to the future of work. But your engaged employees, they're going to become more important because they're overseeing a bot that's doing 10 times the work they could have done in the past. We need them even more, is actually what I'm saying. And then the other point about the war for talent that Ben, you mentioned, that I wanted to also circle back to is, I think that I've read a couple articles on this, that the unemployment numbers, we were at like a record low, and now we may be at a record high. And I don't know that that's going to change some of these things, because some of the shift in work from home, to your point, maybe that drives some folks, if their portfolio comes back, to go, I'm done. I'm retiring. I'm out of the workforce, or I'm shifting careers, or I mean, just there could be major movements that I don't think that this.
But that was coming anyways.
Yeah,
Baby boomers were getting to the age where they're retiring and moving on. And how many in those do you have in your staff? That Susie's worked here for 40 years, 30
Right.
years, and it's like, yeah, she's pretty close. She was just holding out for whenever it was the right time.
Right.
And now might be the
It
right
could be
time, just because she's like,
accelerated,
I
right.
don't want to do this. We had the people who couldn't use a mouse were thinking the same thing, like, I don't want to learn this.
Right.
The reason
That's
they
what
didn't
I
learn a
mean. This
mouse is
could be
because they didn't want to learn a
accelerating.
mouse.
Yeah. It could accelerate those trajectories for some of these people.
100%.
Whether that's good or ill, I don't know. It might happen. And so I think that is actually going to ratchet up the war for talent that we were seeing before coronavirus with the low unemployment. I think it's going to emerge in the next few months, maybe
the challenge
worse.
is even bigger, though, as I've always said, is that not necessarily that there are going to be less jobs. It's that there's really no formal education happening. There's no process in which people are getting into rev cycle and going, oh, I really want to be a rev cycle leader tomorrow.
Mhm.
I went to I went to the University of Michigan and I got my rev cycle degree. It's like
Right.
that doesn't exist.
Right.
And so people
Despite
are
being
like
a top
falling into it.
3, sexy career, as you mentioned earlier. Despite
It's
that, there's no.
besides that. I mean, and I've talked long about that. I think everybody has. There's really just nothing out there that's like creating a pipeline for great people. And so that's the other challenge that we're all going to be faced with. Either you create that internally and you're creating a recruiting machine, or you're stealing the best people.
So here's
Which might
just
I'm just saying that could be an option.
yeah. Well, so off the top of my head, then, so that creates an interesting question. Does that get worse if we have more and more remote employees? And like you said, managing via remote is capable. It's possible, but it could be harder because you don't get the that personal touch or what, in the same room is not the same as remote. And then other fields, retail, manufacturing, they're still on site. So that's traditional management skills work there. So we don't have a technical skills ladder for RevCycle. And now maybe we don't have, because it's so new, we don't have a great education program for managing employees remotely. Does it get even worse?
I think
This
that's
is just
where,
off the top of my head.
No, I mean, I think it's where the leap from, this is going to be controversial. The leap from you having your own shop to you outsourcing it is very small.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm be honest, like at some point those guys are going to be able to do it better than you because they're totally focused on it.
Right.
And that's like a typical thing in almost every other industry. If Gap wants to make a certain thing out of certain cloth, they just go find the company that does it and they hire them to do it.
Right. Yeah, very true.
To think that we like like I've said this several times, but like the CFO, they like the fact it feels cozy that they have this whole group I can just go down and see. They may never do it, but the reality is like it's there, so
Right.
it feels nice, like a little blanket. But then when you're not home, you're home and they don't see you.
Yeah.
The leap from that is like it's small, I think. But that's just, again, this is me theoretical. I'm not in the day to day anymore like you guys are.
Well,
don't
and
know.
don't you think the way, I mean, all of us have, David, do you have children? All of us have children?
Yep.
Okay, so if we look at like how our children are, in 10 years, they're the next people to do the job. So they're going to be used to all of this. Leading remotely will be second nature to the generation that's coming up behind us.
Well,
Right.
Allison's kid especially. Allison, your kid's 2.
Not in 10
mine-
years then.
yes.
We'll give that
But
one.
no, just like
15 years.
imagine what Allison's is it. I'm sorry, is it a boy or girl? I'm like
A little girl.
I'm just
a little
saying
girl.
kid.
Eva.
but- Eva? Oh, I have an Ava, so we bonded already. So imagine Eva. Like imagine my Ava is 11, right? So even her, this is gonna seem like no big deal. But to Eva, it's not even gonna be a question.
Oh no.
Right.
They'll have video like this. They'll be just like, I mean, this is what
Oh, she
What
already
we
knows how
do,
to
right?
FaceTime her father.
right.
She FaceTimes her father from my phone. She knows the password. I'm like, how? It's
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah. My youngest son
Mm-hmm.
is 12 and he has had an iPad his whole life. And he could do things like if now I'd like to think that he and I have the same level of knowledge about these things. Probably not. But he could figure things out faster than my mother for sure at 2 than my mother now probably. I love you, Mom, if you're listening.
I'm sorry. It's not a personal shot against.
Not
Right.
personal, right?
Yeah.
It's generational is all I'm
And it's
saying.
Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah, so
So-
I think this will
sorry.
all be what we think is a big deal will be nothing.
So what I'm envisioning is very young kids 20 years from now looking at a conference room like 25-year-olds look at a phone booth.
Sure.
What
Or a fax
is
machine.
that?
What is that?
Maybe not a conference room, but definitely a cube farm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They'll look
It's
at one
my-
of those and be like,
That's
"Is
like
this
my
the
favorite
Matrix?"
thing. The death
That
of
old
the death
school
of the
movie,
cube
The
farm.
Matrix.
Right. Yeah. It's funny to think, like I said, I find it enjoyable to think about some of those things and what they might look like over time. And yeah, I think you're right. As they become absorbed into cultural norms, the challenging thing for folks like myself is then, okay, how do I keep up with that? Right. So myself, Allison, as that group enters the workforce, what do we need to do to stay fresh and stay capable of managing them effectively and so forth and so on. And so that's what I'm always kind of trying to look out for, those types of things, because I don't want to end up accidentally being the dinosaur because I've not kept up fast enough. It's one thing to, I'm adding skills, I'm researching, I'm learning, I'm getting a certification, I'm doing this, but I'm growing 1% a year and the workforce is improving at 2% a year. Well, over time, I've become obsolete without even realizing it. I'm doing better. I'm doing great, except not better enough. You know what I mean?
I think that's probably the space where you are open to feedback and asking for it from the people you're working with, right?
Mhm.
Instead of, I think that idea of authoritarian leadership is going to go bye-bye real quick. And, just because I say so, which never worked with any child ever. I don't know why people think it works in other places, but I think that idea, like, as long as you're willing to say, hey, what can I do? How can I be better, to the people that have the most input to the change, then, I think and the fact that you're already thinking about it already puts you in a better headspace than, I would say, probably more than half of your peers.
So not to go back real quick, but I have this idea. So I have this idea coming out of this quarantine, and this is all related to what we've been talking about. So the talent war. I've been thinking and someone's going to steal this probably now that I say it, but that's fine. I don't think I can pull it off. But it's an idea to create an Uber type workforce or platform that you guys could come to the platform. Let's just call it Uber for whatever reason. And you could say, oh, I need Blue Cross accounts, Blue Cross New York accounts. I have 1,000, and then it'll match you with available people who know Blue Cross New York. Right? So it's like just think of the follow-up tool. And then it just is like, oh yeah, well, Susie's available and she's this much. And this is her rating from other people, and she's got this much time available. And you just click it and then give her X. So my thoughts, like, there's like, and that may be way down the road, but like, how far off are we from, like, maybe you have your set core group that is your workforce, but then you flex up and down with other means. Because right now the only way to do that is you have to outsource, like, oh, we'll give them over under $500 or under 1,000.
Right.
But maybe that's not what you need, and you don't. I just need these. I just need this because this is like Susie's off for a month, so let's go to the app and let's see who's available. That's my idea. I don't know if it actually has any legs, but it's more pushing the envelope towards, like, this old days of having 200 people in some office park. I don't think those days are just, like, they can't exist anymore. It's too expensive.
No, Ben, I think that's a great idea. It's something that it closely aligns with an idea that I think, me personally, I think that LinkedIn should be doing instead of trying to be like Facebook. I think that they should be, like, upping their skills section so that it's actually objective, and having better marrying in their learning products so that you can actually show competency, and then having freelance capability through that platform. I mean, because it's essentially, there's what, 400 million people on LinkedIn. I mean, there's a huge pool across the globe. There's a huge pool of talent sitting right there that if you had some of the functionality like you were talking about, not just for our industry, but any industry, you could say, essentially supporting that gig economy type of deal in a way that also allows you to vet references and so forth and so on, and whether it's LinkedIn or some app or whatever.
Well,
but
we could
agree
do
with
a
you
whole
from a
series
concept.
on how LinkedIn is messed up and could be a lot better than what it is. Because just as someone who's on it a lot, like, I could tell you, there are issues, and they have not figured out. See, they got paid on recruiting,
right?
And so that's what they built it off of, and it's moved into something else, and they don't even I don't even know if they really realize it's moved into something else.
I agree. Yeah, and I didn't mean to take us on a tangent.
No, it's funny.
I have
I would love that
similar idea to yours. I'm not going to create it. I'm not a coder. I'm not entrepreneurial. I'm neither of those. I'm fine working for the man.
Oh
And so,
no, I don't believe
you know,
it.
you know,
I don't
so
believe that.
so my point was just, gosh, I wish LinkedIn would do X, and it's
Yeah.
very similar to your idea. I think the barrier is our interoperability problems, and like Epic isn't Epic, you know, it in the
Yeah,
sense of
that's
my Epic's probably not the same as down the road at Mercy in Cincinnati, Ohio. Is not the same as Ohio State. Is not. I think that's the potential barrier there, which is a shame, because I think what you're talking about would allow huge amounts of efficiency.
yeah.
I mean, just huge amounts of efficiency.
Yep.
Well, then you just make the case for a single payer, single way to process these claims. There you go.
Well, that'd be the ideal. Ryan and I talked about this week. It's just like, well, that would be the thing, but if we can't, but that's like a pie in the sky. That's never going to happen. So,
Right.
yeah, those are the hard parts. Well, thanks, guys. I think we've hit probably the time limit. Not that there is one, but let's just say that there is. Thanks, Allison and David, for giving us your thoughts. I thought it was a great discussion. Right, we ended up talking about work from home more than more than I thought we would, but it was great.
That's
Awesome.
all right. It's good. Thanks for the opportunity, Ben.
Thanks for
Yeah,
coming
appreciate
on.
it.
Friends the world.
Awesome.
All right. Bye-bye.
We go chasing after answers. No more.